Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Hello everyone, welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man, and joining me today is going to be William Von Holst, and he's here on behalf of Emery Valian, if I got the pronunciation correct. And he's going to be, that is, okay. He's going to be talking about Emery's new book, the most recent one in his series. The past one was Planetary Transformation. The new one is the new Planetary Reality. And, we'll probably come back later, next year sometime for the third book in the series, but we'll only brief you on that one today. At any rate, we're going to talk about his new book and about avatars, and, you know, this is a news thing for me. I mean, for example, I've never heard them called avatars. I heard them called avatars, which I think most people know they're probably one and the same. But this is William's second time to the show. I really enjoyed him the first time, and I think it's going to be a great show today. So, without further ado, let's get on to William. William, how you doing today?
Very good, thank you.
Well, William, I was just going to say, to start us out real quick before we get to the questions, why don't you tell everybody a little something about you and Emery and the book to kind of break the ice, get everybody an idea of where we're at.
What Emery is focusing on, and has been for a couple of years, is that there's a new frequency, a new energy that's really coming into the planet. And what he's working on is to help as many people as possible understand what's happening on the planet today, why there's so much chaos, why there's so much disagreement among people, why there is so much violence on the planet. And what he's wanting to do is that if people really understand why all these things are happening, then they can take a deep breath and relax and understand that it's part of a greater whole, or a greater unfoldment of energy on the planet today.
Okay. Now, this energy that you're referring to, and this isn't one of the questions we had on the list, but it's one that's been on my curiosity. I was planning to ask you, could it be the same memory that, Emery, slap me silly, but can it be the same energy that was referred to in the Old Testament in Amos, I think it was, when he said, in those days I shall pour out my spirit, in other words?
And he is, yes, absolutely. And what is happening today is that the divine itself is pouring out his spirit, and he's pouring out his spirit in spades. And we on the planet are feeling that. Every single person somewhere within is feeling something changing. Most of us don't really understand why. Most of us could respond in ways that we don't understand. We could get confused, we can get overloaded, we could get agitated, we could get angry, we could get depressed. And what Emery is saying is that it's an absolutely magnificent time to be alive, because this outpouring of the Spirit will become more and more truly visible, not just something you can sense on the inner levels, but will become more and more visible on the outer plane. We will be witnessing the Spirit from the divine itself manifesting on the planet.
Like there will be, more psychics, more healers, etc.?
Well, that's part of it too, but even in a very simple way, that if you look up into the heaven, or you look up into the sky, and you see clouds, which we see all the time, and if you kind of tune in to some of these clouds and some of these things that are happening, what you will actually begin to witness or experience is that the energy is becoming visible. I was with Emery this last January in New Zealand, I was on a retreat with him for 2 weeks, and we were to go into our normal 7 o'clock evening chanting session, and I looked out over the hills, and I saw a red rainbow. There were not 7 colors in this rainbow. The rainbow itself was red, and it just something triggered inside of me that something's happening. Why is a rainbow red? I don't know, but what's happening is that look to the heavens, look to what's happening. There's an incredible energy that's coming down, and it's becoming visibly manifesting.
Right. Okay, and I know I've seen some similar things to what you're describing, but before we move on to any other questions, I want to mention to everybody listening that if y'all want to call in and ask questions, the number is 832-632-7904. And for those of you listening at, say, YouTube or iTunes or somewhere else, the site here is www.paranormalpalace.com, and we got a chat room here open. We'd love to have you come join us in the chat room. If you want to learn more about the book, you can go to warwickandassociates.com and look in their campaigns, and it'll give you a link to the book. Look for a new Planetary Reality. You can also click on the link on the show description right under William's picture here on the front page as well. And William, I got to ask you real quick, do you or Emery, either one, have your own website?
Emery does have a website, and it's planetary-transformation.org, O-R-G.
Okay.
If you want to know more about Emery, you can go to that website. And there's also a website if you want to order the books, and that website is soundinglight.com.
Okay. And I'm going to do my best to remember to add that to the archives when I move it to the archives, which I will be sending you links to the archives. So this show's going to be out there for prosperity, so to speak. Now, moving back onto the regular questions, however, I think it'd be a good idea to tell everybody listening exactly who Emery is.
Emery is a very normal person on the outside. He turned 72 this year. He was born in war-torn Budapest in 1940. In 1956, he became a refugee because he crossed the border from Hungary into Austria, and he ended up in New Zealand. But what makes Emery so unique is that from a very small age, 2 and 3, he was able to explore the inner dimensions. And it's wonderful to hear him talk about it, because he can talk about it as a young boy at 3 years of age. He's lying in bed, and he's going into these inner dimensions, and sometimes they terrified him, and he came back out, and then he kind of gathered his courage up again and went back into these inner dimensions and explored them. So what he's done his whole life is that he's explored the inner dimensions themselves. So all his teachings come from his own experience of these inner dimensions. So everything that he's teaching us is because he himself has experienced all these inner dimensions, and there's multiple dimensions beyond this physical plane. And so his teaching comes from those dimensions themselves, because in those worlds or those dimensions, when you experience them, you have a very different understanding of what it's like to be a human being, what we're truly about, what our potential is within, and then you're able to help other people explore those dimensions as well.
Okay, that sounds very fascinating, and I know there's a lot of, teaching out there that, deals with the actual exploration of yourself and getting to know yourself and, the inner dimensions, conscious, subconscious, some people would call it. But, basically, it's a well-known, concept, in other words.
And what Emery is saying, and it's really good if you understand this, but we, on the physical plane, live essentially on the skin, the very outermost layer itself, the skin of an incredible divine being. So our whole physical world, everything that we see, everything that we do, is really on the outermost skin. So when Emery is exploring these inner dimensions, what he's actually doing is he's going past this layer of the skin, going into, of course, the dream world. He refers to as the astral plane. That could even be referred to as a flesh, the layer beneath the skin of this divine being. But Emery's been able to go even deeper than the flesh. He's actually really moved into the deeper levels of this divine being itself, meaning that Emery has explored the inner organs of this divine being, or the bone structure of the divine being, or the heart itself of the divine being, or the brain itself of this incredible divine being. So when he's teaching it all, he's bringing those incredible understandings from the inner dimensions, and there's multiple dimensions. He's bringing that to us on the very skin where we live on the physical plane, and helping us make that journey inward.
Okay. Now, one of the things we're going to talk about here is you have worked exclusively with Emery for 26 years. Why and how has that been for you?
I have had teachers prior to Emery. As I said, some were famous, some not famous. And what always had happened was that within a couple of years, I had felt that I had reached the end of their knowledge field, and that I knew I needed to move on. And I met Emery 26 years ago on a retreat up in Salmon Arm in Canada. And from the very beginning, I could sense that there was no limit, there was no end of his knowledge field. And I have been with him exclusively for 26 years, and I'm still astounded at how much I still have to learn, how much there is no end to his understanding, to his knowledge field. It's infinite. So for me, the experience is infinite.
Okay. Now, I was going to ask you to explain his teachings and how he knows what he knows, but you were pretty well already doing that one a minute ago. So would you like to add anything else to what you were saying about his teachings and, what he knows, or do you feel like you've already covered that?
Well, I think, I'll just say very quickly, what Emery has, and all true teachers have this, they have a huge energy field that they've connected to. It's very much like the analogy of the Star Wars and the Force. So Emery is like the Master Yodi, who is this kind of mysterious creature, but this little kind of creature is connected to this huge universal force. So for anyone coming into that, all the teaching is how to help, like Luke Skywalker in the very beginning, questions and getting stuck up and stumbled with things. The little Yodi, Master Yodi, helped him through to understand who Luke Skywalker truly is. So it's the same thing with Emery. He's connected to the Force. That Force is within him. Emery is part of that energy field, that Force field. So anytime that you begin working with his teachings, reading his book, listening to someone talk about it, what's happening is that you're also beginning to touch upon that force field itself. And when you touch upon that force field, the force field itself will teach you. So it's an incredibly beautiful connection possible of so many different kinds of people being able to connect to that infinite force field itself.
Now, this infinite force field you're referring to, if you don't mind me straying from the question list again, some of the stuff, I'm sorry, I'm the kind of person that I have my own questions about everything all the time. But would this be the same thing that has been known to be called the Buddha, the Christ, avatars, and other names as well, but we're talking about the same basic energy field?
We are talking about the same energy field, and every culture puts their own label on this force field. Christianity refers to it as Christ, and refers to my father and I are one. Buddha, same thing. They had a vocabulary or language, but what they're referring to is that the innermost teaching is that there is this incredible force field, a consciousness itself, a divine consciousness, a consciousness of unity. So what Emery is focusing on this book, the new Planetary Reality, and the subtitle is The Coming Avatara and the 9 Paths to Enlightenment. What he's saying is that this force field is becoming very present on the planet today. This avatara, this incredible cosmic being is beginning to focus itself on the physical earth itself. And that avatara is connected to every single avatara that has been on this earth in the past. So our previous avatars have been the Buddha, the Christ, Mohammed, Quan Xing Ying, Lao Tzu, Moses, pharaohs in ancient Egypt, even teachers all the way back to Atlantis. These teachers from the inner levels have come to the earth to a very particular time, a very particular place, a very particular culture, and a very particular people. And these avatars have incarnated in the flesh. Christ, incarnated. He was a human being. Buddha was a human being. Kuan Yin was a very beautiful feminine expression of this energy as a woman in China long ago. So all of these avatars all come from the same place. They're all part of that unity consciousness, or the field, that force field. Now what's happening today, and this is very unique because it's never happened on the planet before, is that the avatara, this coming avatara, is not coming to a particular place, a particular person, or a particular culture. This avatar is not itself incarnating into a human being. This avatar is something completely different. It's actually, and it sounds so science fiction, and people may, it will stretch their minds a bit if you understand what's really happening. But this avatara is not of the earth itself. It has come from a place outside of planet Earth. So it has chosen through a divine plan, through a mission, because planet Earth is in crisis, because we are bordering on moving into a credible, nightmarish, dark, science fiction kind of life, or we could possibly move into an incredible golden age. So right now on the planet, we're in a very, very critical window of opportunity. So Emery refers to, we have this 20-year window of opportunity, and roughly we are in the first 2 or 3 years of that window of opportunity. So for the next 18 years or so, we have humanity has an enormous choice before them. Do we get stuck in the status quo? Do we get stuck in dictatorship? Do we get stuck in people's agenda wanting to rule others and to hurt others and to be violent and to show their will by destruction? Or will humans decide to move into a new direction, move into an energy that is really based on true love itself, an energy that embraces everything, an energy that's not afraid of differences, an energy that doesn't kill someone because they have a different belief than they do. So we're really we're teetering on these two possibilities, these two futures for mankind. And so what is also happening is that this avatara is able to surround the earth in, I will refer to it as he, you could say he, she, or it, gender doesn't really matter, but this consciousness of the avatar itself is able to completely embrace planet Earth, all 7 billion people on the planet, is able to embrace the 3 billion that are waiting to incarnate. So there's 10 billion human souls, the family, the human species, one family, 10 billion, is able to embrace every single person simultaneously and is able to help in miraculous ways when any single individual, man, woman, child, has that moment of awakening or that moment of when they're teetering between those two different scenarios, that avatara can help them move into the direction of opening, the direction of helping others, the direction of embracing the new instead of getting stuck in the past. So there's an enormous, as I said before in the planetary transformation, there's enormous energy coming into the planet, and there's an enormous crisis that we're in and incredible miracles that are going to happen as well.
Okay. Now, I was going to ask you about his new book, the title of The New Planetary Reality, Becoming Avatar and the Nine Gates to Enlightenment, and ask you to explain. You've been pretty well explaining the parts about the coming Avatara. So why don't you talk to us real quick, like, about the Nine Gates to Enlightenment?
Now, what this means is that the Avatara is like a president of the United States or a CEO, and there's lots of things that has to be done. And of course, a president or a CEO can't do everything themselves. They can steer things, but they need an enormous amount of help from many, many people. No one person can accomplish anything, of huge differences all by themselves. So the Avatar is very much like that. So what the Avatar is doing is waiting very patiently for people to wake up. And when people begin to wake up in their consciousness, then the Avatara is able to help them. And this doesn't mean necessarily that you have to totally be spiritual and focus in some kind of spiritual tradition and be devout and all that kind of thing. What's so mysterious about the Avatara is that it can also help a scientist. It can help an economic professor. It could help a politician. It could help someone in music fields or artistic fields. It's not limited to just someone who's spiritually focused. It can help any single person on this planet who's moving into the new direction. And so that, every avatar in the past has always been kind of focused on a spiritual, almost you could say limitation. But this avatara is so vast in its consciousness and so flexible in its understanding that it's able to help any single person. So what Emery is saying is that we have ways that we can raise our frequency, the ways that we raise our vibration. When we raise our vibration, then we're able to connect with this avatara. So he has given 9 examples, 9 paths. He refers to it as enlightenment. It means how to open up your consciousness, how to open up your energy field, how to open up your auric field around you so that you can begin to experience these incredible energies from the avatara himself. And the 9 paths, each of them focus on a particular way. And as he said, that everyone in the past, everyone in the human history who has become enlightened has done it in one of 9 different ways. And some of these ways are working with sound. Some of the ways are working with light. Some of the ways are working with breath. Some of them are working as a spiritual warrior, which means that you are totally grounded in your body and you're able to move as a spiritual warrior and connect with the energies of the greater. Some of these paths focus on visualization, so that you put an image in front of you, a mandala, some kind of sacred image, and then your subconscious mind can absorb that and direct you to become that. So there are all different kinds of ways, and everyone's different, and there's many people have combinations of different ways of feeling the light or seeing the light, feeling the energy, hearing the sounds. So what his 9 paths are, he goes into detail about how each one of the paths are different and how you can follow one or many.
And these are all detailed very neatly inside of the book, right?
And there's also, in a few of the chapters, there's actually a reference to how to pronounce a mantra, because of course mantras and sound are very, very important. So if you buy the book, you can look on a certain page, and there's help for the warrior mantra. There's help for a mantra to help open up the third eye. There's a mantra to help open up the heart chakra. You can go on that website that we mentioned before, the planetarytransformation.org, and you can listen to how Emery intones those mantras, and that will really empower you to connect to that energy.
Okay. Now, you've already covered what a true avatara is. So, Now, I think I heard you a minute ago. You were talking about what the different avatars were, focused on, and you've also talked about how the new avatar is different. So you've been doing a good job of getting ahead of me here, covering all of this, which that's pretty good. And okay, Emery says we're in the midst of Revelations, which you were kind of briefly touching on that a few minutes ago. But would you like to extrapolate on that a little bit further?
Absolutely. And, this is interviews on mid-October of 2012. December 21st of 2012 is a couple months away. And as Emery said, that the whole 2012, December 21st, is going to be a big old flop, meaning that the day after is going to look the same as the day before. What he's saying, though, is that we are in the midst of revelations. What the Bible 2,000 years ago had written in Revelations, and other prophets at that time also spoke about it, that we are really coming to that manifestation of that incredible battle here on the planet, and it's happening today. So what is happening is that we see an increase in violence, we see an increase of tension, we see an increase of confusion, we see all kinds of ways people are interpreting what is happening. But at the same time, there's also an incredible energy that is being lowered down from the inner dimensions, so that there is this light on the inner dimensions, and it's lowering its frequency. And as Emery said, year by year, month by month, week by week, day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, that energy is becoming more and more present, more and more obvious, more and more accessible to us here on the physical plane, to normal human beings. So what this means is that each person on the planet today is going to come across a moment of revelation, a moment of something happening completely out of the ordinary, something on the back of your neck kind of gives you this feeling to go left instead of right, and you obey that kind of feeling on the back of your neck, and a few seconds away, in the other direction, there's a hideous automobile accident. Or there's all kinds of things that are happening that are hard to explain, and that's going to happen more and more. Because what's happening is that we, the human race, we are the prize. There are huge battles that are going on in heaven, and these battles are raging. There are forces of light, there are forces of darkness, and they are raging for the prize, and the prize is the human race. And because of that, this incredible otherworldly, I mean, you could almost say it's the ultimate alien, this cosmic avatara, is come into our plane of existence, has come into our lives, and is here to help, and has powers that are incomprehensible to all of us.
Sort of like the power of creation itself.
It is the most kind of divine expression of the Creator himself. It is like his lieutenant or in way, not to be disrespectful of a Christ or a Buddha or a Kuan Yin, but this avatar, this coming avatar is way, way beyond in its power and its cosmic conscious energy field than our Christ or the Buddha or Kuan Yin. So it doesn't happen very often in any planetary history. It has never happened on the planet before. It is a very unique time, and it's happening now. It may not happen in the future. There's many factors that are present today because this is the time that it's happening. It will happen, as Emery said, for there's a 20-year critical period, but this avatar is really focused on the next 300 years and the next 1,000 years. So
to take up where we were at. Do you remember where you were at, or do you like me to move to the next question?
Why don't you move to the next question?
Okay. In the new book, The New Planetary Reality, on page 14, Emery quotes Matthew, when the Christ comes, he will come with his masters and his angels. Could you explain why that is relevant today?
I will explain, and it's very beautiful. And to give a little history, that was something that Matthew wrote, one of the disciples of Christ. And what he's referring to is we would say today, the second coming of the Christ. And what the Middle Ages and the European consciousness had interpreted that was that Christ, like in Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel, he's coming in the clouds, he's a huge figure, he has angels all around him, and he's coming as the last judgment. And of course that's how the mind 400 years ago interpreted that. But today there's a completely different understanding of what this means, and it's a much deeper level, and it's all connected to the Avatara, or the descent of the Avatara itself. And what Emery's referring to, and why he's quoting this, is that when the Christ comes, he comes with his masters and his angels. Now, you could think of Christ as, we all have thought of some reincarnation of the Christ itself. Well, that's not what is really the deeper level of this text. But the deeper level of this text is that when more and more people on the planet, when they begin to open their heart chakra and they begin to connect to that inner energy of the Christ itself, or that there's other traditions which refer to it as a spirit spark atom. So every person on this planet, all 7 billion of us, the worst dictators you can ever imagine, have a spark of the Christ itself, or the spirit spark atom buried within their heart. So when more and more people begin to connect to that incredible mystery of the heart itself, then the Christ, or that love, cosmic love energy which Christ brought, which is coming back today, that individual is radiating that cosmic love, and the masters and the angels are able on the inner levels to help that person. So when a single person or many people begin to connect to their inner heart, they are bringing the Christ, that cosmic love energy, into the planet, 2012, and they also have an enormous embrace of the spiritual teachers, of the angels, and of the Avatara itself. So this is an incredible new understanding of an ancient text.
Okay. I'll tell you what, I'm showing that we got 12 minutes remaining, and I don't think we're going to have time to get all the questions in during that 12 minutes, and I realize you have to go to work today. So why don't you give us a summary and highlight some of the most important parts of the book, and then if you want to, we can reschedule this for a date in, say, November or December to come back and finish, what we got interrupted on due to the brownout.
I would be happy to come back, absolutely.
So you want to give us kind of a summary of some of the important stuff that you wanted to cover that we may not have covered up to this point?
Well, the important thing to understand is that every single person on this planet is facing a crisis. And another way of saying it is that they're in their own Armageddon. And what this means is that we always think Armageddon is this huge kind of battle of these forces, and it's not connected to us individually. But what is happening is that every person today is having an Armageddon within, meaning that they are struggling with these forces within their own life. So I know many people are struggling with paying bills, many people are struggling with health issues, struggling with how to provide for their children, how to get through the day, how to just survive on the planet. And it's getting tough. And what is important to understand is that the reason that it's tough is not because something you've done wrong, but it's because there's incredible energies from many, many levels coming into the planet today. As I said in the planetary transformation, we're moving out of that Piscean energy, we're moving into Aquarian energy, which mankind has done every 26,000 years, so that's not a big deal. But what is also happening is that we're moving out of the sleepy part of the galaxy into a very dynamic part of the galaxy. And we're actually getting bombarded from the center of our own galaxy. This energy is coming towards us. That's affecting us as well. So that's making our individual Armageddon more intense. But mostly what is happening is that there's energies that are coming from the inner dimensions as well, and they're getting stepped down. So what is happening is that we are just on the surface of beginning to experience on the physical plane these new energies that are getting stepped down from these inner dimensions. These are energies of light. These are energies of sound. We will more and more begin to experience, witness the light itself. More and more people will begin to witness the incredible divine sound itself. You know, I mentioned earlier about the angelic forces. The angelic forces are like our sisters. Emery said that we actually have a covenant with the angelic forces from the very beginning. We, humanity, are the brothers. So we are one family, the brothers and sisters, the human kingdom and the angelic kingdom. We are tied together. They are here to help us. They are always trying to help us. And what's happening now is that they can help us more and more because people are beginning to change the vibration. People are beginning to open up to the possibility that these invisible workers, and there's many, many, many dimensions of invisible workers are actually helping us. So it's an incredibly beautiful time to live. As Emery said, you're very lucky to be alive today. You're very lucky that you've incarnated, that you are asking questions, that you're conscious of the spiritual path, you're conscious of those enormous changes that are happening, and as Emery's mission has been for many, many years is to help as many people as possible just understanding what's happening on the planet today, help individuals in their own Armageddon, and make a difference.
Right. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk about this here coming, and, you know, one of the things that a person might ask is if this is tied in with the Mayan prophecy in some way.
Well, the Mayan prophecy, Emery interprets this as the Mayan prophecy is essentially the end of one kind of calendar system, and it's not the end. It's basically another calendar system will open up. So, and there's many, many other traditions that, you know, the Hopi and all kinds of other traditions have this sense of some kind of finality. And what they have been referring to, or what they're focusing on, is that we're in a critical time, and the critical time is now. And in one day it's not going to end, but there are many energies coming in that will make an enormous difference how it all plays out. So what's the most important thing is that people go within, that they really begin to understand who they are, what they can do to make a difference, really begin to understand how they can help what's happening on the planet, how they can begin to connect to their own soul, how they can really work with these invisible forces and let these invisible forces really work through them. I mean, in a true way, not so much channeling and having, you know, entities from the astral plane speak through them, but really being able to embody these incredible divine energies that are coming into our planet.
Okay. Well, I saw we got like 6 minutes remaining. Did you have any last-minute thoughts?
Well, besides our interruption of your brownout.
Yeah, I do apologize for that. Unfortunately, we can't do much with the light company. But I wish I had a backup battery. Go ahead.
Another interview the other day, and the same thing happened. It just blacked out, so I don't know what's going on. But
we'll talk about energy.
Yeah, no. Are there any questions that have come up?
No, nothing's come up in the chat room exactly about the book or what you're talking about. Some of the people haven't even come back since the brownout. People in there are saying that they can get into chat, but they can't get the player to work. I'm pretty sure they're going to end up catching the last part in the archives, and that might be why questions haven't been asked, is when the brownout occurred, something else might have happened at the same time, or maybe it's because I didn't totally restart my whole entire, laptop when I restarted it, and maybe I should have. I just admitted I got my signal back, just pulled everything back up, in other words.
Well, yeah, there's definitely some interference, then you could say. What I do want to mention briefly is that Emery is also, in fact, at this very moment, working on a new book. And the new book is called The New Heaven and the New Earth. And what he's doing in this book is giving very specific analysis or interpretations or directions of how this new energy will manifest. So he talks about the new kind of economy that will happen on the planet. He talks about the new kind of medicine that will happen on the planet, the new kind of healing, the new kind of psychiatric help, the new kind of political systems that will be on the planet. And it's a really beautiful vision of where mankind could be going. So it's very inspiring and it's very liberating. I know many people are really struggling at the moment. There's a lot of things that are happening all over the world, the Middle East, the politics in America, the fiscal cliff, the euro. I mean, we have so many things going on this planet that seem to bring up a lot of fear in people. And this is, as Emery said, this is all normal. It's all part of these clashes of energies that we're on at the moment. And what helps is to really have a vision of the future, to really know where mankind is directed to go, what the true human being should be like, what the new earth should truly be like. And when you have that vision, then you can get through the darkness, then you can get through the difficulties and the crises and the earthquakes and the storms and all the political chaos and the economic chaos. Because it really, if a people don't have a vision, they can't endure anything. But if they have that vision, they can endure everything.
Right, and that's very, good information to think about, because I think a lot of it does boil down to faith.
Faith is very important, and also just to believe in something that will make a difference. To have that power within to make a difference. That has enormous implications at many levels.
All righty. Well, I'm going to go ahead and call this show a wrap. I show that it's like 1:58, and we were going to wrap it at 2 anyway, and we're going to need to do a reschedule to account for the brownout. But I want to tell you, it's been a pleasure having you. You're a very informed guest. You're a very interesting guest, and you're covering a lot of material that I think a lot of people need to know about. And I want to apologize one more time for that brownout. And I do have your, contact info. And tomorrow, the next day, I'll be in touch about scheduling you to, finish doing what we, left off at. I want to thank you for coming, and I'll be in touch.
Well, and thank you so much for having me.
Okay. You have a good day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for coming, everybody. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Remember, I couldn't have a show with you any more than have one without a guest. It takes all parties to make everything work. I hope y'all enjoy your weekend. Don't do anything I wouldn't do during the rest of it. And we'll be back on the air again Tuesday. And once again, Tuesday's guest is going to be Sean Blackwell, and we're going to be talking about, am I bipolar or waking up? This is about whether or not people who are bipolar or schizophrenic are really have a disorder, or are they just in the process of a spiritual awakening? And he's somebody who has been diagnosed with bipolar and maybe schizophrenia. I'm not sure. Sometimes I do get to both. Didn't get that far into his material. I got a ways in, though. So we're going to hear it from his perspective this time rather than the psychologist's perspective. And until then, bye-bye and take care.
Is that it's an absolutely magnificent time to be alive, because this outpouring of the Spirit will become more and more truly visible, not just something you can sense on the inner levels, but will become more and more visible on the outer plane. We will be witnessing the Spirit from the divine itself manifesting on the planet.
Like there will be, more psychics, more healers, etc.?
Well, that's part of it too, but even in a very simple way, that if you look up into the heaven, or you look up into the sky, and you see clouds, which we see all the time, and if you kind of tune in to some of these clouds and some of these things that are happening, what you will actually begin to witness or experience is that the energy is becoming visible. New frequency, a new energy that's really coming into the planet. And what he's working on is to help as many people as possible understand what's happening on the planet today, why there's so much chaos, why there's so much disagreement among people, why there is so much violence on the planet. And what he's wanting to do is that if people really understand why all these things are happening, then they can take a deep breath and relax and understand that it's part of a greater whole, or a greater unfoldment of energy on the planet today.
Okay. Now, this energy that you're referring to, and this isn't one of the questions we had on the list, but it's one that's been on my curiosity. I was planning to ask you.
Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man. And joining me today is going to be William Von Holst, and he's here on behalf of Emery Valian, if I got the pronunciation correct. And he's going to be, that is, okay. He's going to be talking about Emery's new book, the most recent one in his series. The past one was Planetary Transformation. The new one is the new Planetary Reality. And we'll probably come back later next year sometime for the third book in the series, but we'll only brief you on that one today. At any rate, we're going to talk about his new book and about avatars. And, you know, this is a new thing for me. I mean, for example, I've never heard them called avatars. I heard them called avatars, which I think most people know they're probably one and the same. But this is William's second time to the show. I really enjoyed him the first time, and I think it's going to be a great show today. So, without further ado, let's get on to William. William, how you doing today?
Very good, thank you.
Well, William, I was just going to say, to start us out real quick before we get to the questions, why don't you tell everybody a little something about you and Emery and the book, to kind of break the ice, get everybody an idea of where we're at.
What Emery is focusing on, and has been for a couple of years, is that there's a new...
Could it be the same Emery that... Emery, slap me silly, but can it be the same energy that was referred to in the Old Testament in Amos, I think it was, when he said, I shall, in those days I shall pour out my spirit, in other words?
And he is, yes, absolutely. And what is happening today is that the the divine itself is pouring out his spirit, and he's pouring out his spirit in spades. And we on the planet are feeling that. Every single person somewhere within is feeling something changing. Most of us don't really understand why. Most of us could respond in ways that we don't understand. We could get confused. We can get overloaded. We could get agitated. We could get angry. We could get depressed. And what Emery is saying